Everyone, thank you. Everyone will learn an awful lot, David. So over to you. Thank you.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I'm David, G4YVM, been licensed, started off as a G8 and then became a G4. And I've done, like most of us, I suppose, if you're in this hobby long enough, then you end up doing most of it. So I've messed around with sideband, I've messed around with digital, I've messed around with CW, I've messed around on HF, I've messed around on VHF, and I've sort of ended up with a couple of, as we all do, with the areas that I love, and I'm very fond of sideband on 2 meters, but there's nobody on, or not around here, so it's a bit of a dead horse. And on HF, which I enjoy, it's always CW. I spent several years working on sideband, and I put a 3-element tri-bander up and all that good stuff, but eventually came back to CW, and CW is where my heart is. I'm just looking, I've got a load of keys. This is my workshop stroke shack, and I've got a load of keys, as we all do. And I'm a member of the Andover Radio Club, and many years ago now, a friend of mine, Jim, who is now Silent Key, we were approached by one of our members to put an aerial up for him. He was a new licensee, he hadn't got an aerial, and he said, would we help him? So we enlisted some people in the club, and we went over to his house. Now, my approach to radio is very much like my approach, I suppose, to anything else, which is shameful, but basically it works on the principle that if it works, it works. You can work out why afterwards. And we went to this chap's QTH, and he had a lovely big house and lots of space. And it was obvious to me that we could actually get up quite a lot of wire, but it would go over his house. So this is exactly what we did. We rigged it, and I was taking charge of the working party, because I get a bit tired of people who try and work out what will work and then do it, when I say I just want to go and see, let's just chuck some wire up, let's make it work. You will work out why afterwards. So we put up a lot of wire, and it went over his house, and at the back of his property then there was a big coil of wire left, and people said, oh well, we'll cut the wire off and we'll do it that way. And I said, well, hang on, before we cut the wire off, let's do something with it, you know, so leave it as contiguous wire. So we coiled it around a mast, and we plugged it in, and it worked very well. Why wouldn't it? It was a long piece of wire. And so later that week I was talking to my friend Jim, and we'd both had the same thought, and the thought was basically along the lines of, how much wire could we take out of that circuit and still make the aerial work? So we started messing around, and actually what we discovered very quickly is that the answer is not much, because you can't load it. You need some sort of balun or unun to make it work. And we tried a variety of designs, and they just didn't work. And eventually what we'd done is we thought, we want to reduce this to absolute minimum wire and make it work, and it didn't work. So we found a whole batch of toroids of different mixes, and we set to, and we were playing with them. And I was at work one day. I used to fly airliners for Thomas Cook, so I was at work, and I got back home to my base, and it jumped in the car, and there's a message from Jim, and he said, I've got one. He said, I've got one that works. So I dashed over to his place, and we messed around with it, and it worked. And we found a particular mix of toroid, which we could design into an unun, and we found that we could wind wire around a mast, and it would load. So what we didn't know was whether it was any good, because lots of wires will load. So we built a couple of them, and we couldn't believe how good they were. So we took it to the club, and they built loads of them. And I think in about 30 aerials, one didn't work, and it never worked. And neither Jim nor I could work out why it never worked. And to this day, we don't know why it didn't work, but it didn't work. But all the others did, and they worked extremely well. Now, when you look at what we were doing, we were literally coiling wire around a mast, and feeding it via this unique unun. And I worked into Asiatic Russia, a friend of mine worked into China. People were working all sorts of DX on these things, and still are. But the problem with the antenna was that you couldn't dismantle it easily. It took a long time because it was wire wound around a mast, and I pondered on this, and I thought there's got to be a way of doing this, and it took me a long time and a lot of effort to come up with the final design. And the final design for the actual antenna, this is a customer's antenna, looks like this. So what you get when you buy one is a nylon sleeve. This is in black, but it also comes in blue, and it comes in red, and it comes in camouflage. And I'm running low on stock, and I'll explain why in a minute. But so you get this nylon sleeve, which is manufactured on a mandrel, and it's taken, I mean, unbelievable amount of man hours of R&D to get it sorted. And it's a hollow tube because it's made on the mandrel, and within the fabric is woven a wire antenna. So in order to put this thing up, you slide the mast into the tube, and then you end up with the sleeve. And if you look at my website, you'll see what you've got: a 7-meter mast with this sock over it. And people go, oh, it's just a length of wire inside the sock. Well, that's like saying, a half-wave dipole is just a length of wire. Yeah, it is, but it's actually configured in quite a special way. But what it means is you can put the antenna up. Well, I can put one up in about 30 seconds. And it's then fed via the Unon. Stand by. This is the kind of thing that you get. There's this kind of Unon, which has got SO239 feeder and a bind post for fastening to the antenna, because the antenna wire comes out of the sleeve as that. It's terminated in a spade connector. It's very simple stuff. This looks rough and ready to customers. It's been through my workshop several times now as we've messed around with it for him at his request. And this is now modified to a Mark II, which I'll come back to. So this comes out as a wire, which is sewn in there. It's not going to come out. And then it's woven through the fabric. And you put the mast inside. You feed that onto the Unon, like that. The ones, I haven't got one manufactured. I'm in the process of making them. But the ones that come with the sleeve, Curex one. Carry on. They have a Velcro tie, which is bolted to this, and that goes around the mast. So that won't come off the mast. It's quite a sturdy bit of kit. And that works on all bands, top band to, well, actually up to about, well, I'll tell you, I sent one of these to America, and I on my website, it's quite clear. It's an HF, all band HF antenna. And the SWR is pretty good on all bands, but it's less than 3-to-1. On many of the bands, it will be less than about 2-to-1. So you could use it directly, but I always say to people, that's not what it's for. So anyway, I sent this one out to America, and he sent me an email, and he said, it's rubbish. It's not resonant on any band. And I said, but it's not meant to be resonant on any band. It's meant to have a low SWR on all bands. And then he comes back and he says, well, it's only resonant on 243 megs. I have no idea what he was doing to load it on 243 megs or why he would want to try. But anyway, so when you put it up on the mast, you've now got a 7-meter mast with this antenna on. I stand mine in one of those elephant's foot stands that you drive your car on, or a very simple, lightweight guying kit. And the lightweight guying kit, I haven't got one manufactured, is a 3-cord guy system with a nylon collar that you put around the mast, and then you lead the 3 cords off. It comes with with tent pegs, and it comes in a nice little plastic bag. So it's all ready to go. And then you feed it in your coax. Now it will handle 100 watts easily. They're two 40 size toroids, which look like that one's ready to go. That's a cluster of them. So they look like that. They're two 40 size toroids, and they will handle they're 100 watts all day. In fact, I've got one up on my doublet, and I don't know quite how it works, but sometimes I can put 400 watts through it and it doesn't complain at all, which I find slightly odd. I don't run that kind of power often. So there you are. You've got your all band. Of course, it's all mode, but customers do ask odd questions. HF antenna, which has got a 3-to-1 SWR or better, and you can then get operating. The question, of course, that people want to know is, well, how good is it? It is only, after all, a 7-meter antenna, and I'm very honest on my website. I said, look, if you can get a G4YVM up or a doublet, or if you can get a half-wave end fed, you do that, because that will knock the socks off my antenna. I'm absolutely sure of it. But if you can't, or if you're out portable and you want an antenna without guys and without ground radials and counterpoises, then my antenna is probably the way to go. Now, I was up on a local spot here, Pepperbox Hill, on sideband using a Xegu G90, and I was working all over Europe on it on 20 watts, and to me that's pretty good. I had a customer email me a couple of months ago, and he said he'd just put the antenna up, and this was an English customer. His first QSO was Brazil, so that was pretty good. Other people on 20 meters, they're working the world, and it's a vertical antenna, so it works like any vertical antenna, and they do work well. Now, I said that there was a Mark II. One of the issues with these aerials is that they're made on essentially a 40 mil mandrel, so the mast must be less than 40 mil for them to go on, and I can put them up in about 30 seconds. Some customers, and this customer is one, has always struggled to put the antenna on the mast. I don't know why, because he collected it in person and I demonstrated it to him, and he did it in front of me, and then he took it away and he couldn't do it. And I, to this day, don't know why. He sent it back once. He said it doesn't work, and it won't load, it won't go on, and it won't load. So I got it back here, I shook it out, took it outside, I put my mast into it immediately, stood it up, and it loaded absolutely fine, and I had QSOs on it. So I sent it back, and a week later he said it won't go on the mast and it won't load. So I said, send it back. So he sent it back. So what I then did was to think, well, maybe he's not the only one to struggle with getting this mast into the sleeve. I can do it. I've done hundreds of them, and I'm quite dexterous and fit. But I do appreciate not all customers are dexterous and fit. Some customers are going to be older or less physically able. And let's be honest, some people, they're not very good at 3D practical things. Maybe getting a mast into there on the lawn is a difficult task for some people. I'm not criticizing them, it's just the way it is. So I thought to myself, I'm putting this woven antenna into a mast which is RF invisible. It's a glass fiber mast. To all intents and purposes, that's a hollow tube to the RF. There is nothing in there but free space. Why do I need the mast? Now, I've tried and tried to make it inflatable, because to me that would just be perfect, but trying to make a 7-meter inflatable tube is really hard going. So the next best thing will be to say, well, don't put the mast inside it, put the mast outside it. So what I've done is added cloth to the outside of the tube, and now you don't need to put the mast into that sleeve. You put the mast up the outside. This doesn't go up all the way, it goes up at strategic points. So now all my customer has to do is slide the tube up there, and the mast now sits on the outside of the sleeve like this, which sounds incredibly counterintuitive, because I've no longer got the woven pattern. I've just got the antenna essentially supported on a skyhook. So it looks like that. But it works, and there's no reason why it shouldn't work, because electrically it's the same as when there's a glass fiber mast in there. So now even the less dexterous can get their antenna on the mast and up 7 foot. This begs the question, do I need the mast at all? Could you hoist it? Well, the answer is yes, you could. And I also include a loop on the end. And if you've got a tree and you've got a rope up there, you could hoist it 7 meters, and that would also work. But the point of the antenna is to have an aerial where there aren't any trees and you can't put wires, a caravan or a boat or something like that. And that's what it does. That's exactly what it's designed for, and it works extremely well. Now, I said that we have no counterpoises, and I showed you this balun, which has quite clearly got ground radials on. They are for the new product, the loft tenor. And the loft tenor was a development of this sleeve antenna. And a customer emailed me and said, I've been playing around with your unun, which always fills me with dread because you don't know what they're going to do to them. And he said, I added some ground wires to it, and you go, oh, blimey, okay. I said, so it's really no longer my unun then. You've completely taken it away from what I intended. I said, so you must understand that anything you tell me is now, And he said, I've discovered it will load quite a short wire. I said, well, it will. And he said, I want you to build me an aerial based on that principle that goes in my loft. Okay, no challenges there then. So I started looking at different lengths of wire, and eventually I thought to myself, if I can have a folded dipole, why can't I have a folded monopole? So I started work on a folded monopole. It's in free space, it's 6 meters long, but it's folded. So the wire is more like 15 meters, but it's doubled back on itself. And again, it took me ages to work out the spacing and the length of the wire. And I'm not, sort of claiming that it's genius and it's absolutely as good as it can get. But yes, 2 days ago, I was using the loft tenor, just strung outside the door here, about 6 feet off the ground, using my unique unun and 2 5-meter ground radials, counterpoises really, just chucked on the floor. And I was working a GM station, and I'd got my loft tenor plugged into the Ten-Tech Orion, and I'd got the my doublet, which is a 155-foot open wire fed doublet, also plugged into a different antenna. And I was switching between the two, and this is the video that's on my website. And there was almost no difference between the two signals, which was astonishing. It astonished me. And we had a QSO, and we worked on this loft tenor. So I'm now selling the loft tenor, and I'm selling it cautiously, because I am very much aware that an internal environment in the loft is very different from going portable on a hillside. There's a lot more QRM. There's a lot more close proximity, which will affect SWR. I sold one to a beta tester months ago, and he just couldn't make it work. SWR was all over the place, and I said to him, how have you got it rigged? He said, well, it's lying on the loft floor. I said to him, well, that will never work. There's no, you would never rig any aerial lying on the loft floor. But unfortunately, those of you who've worked with the Great British Public will appreciate that this is what you're up against. You can sell anything with any level of instruction. They'll still find a way of creating great embodiment, to use a better word. So, but the loft tenor is this shortened wire monopole, a folded monopole, which works in a loft, and is designed when people simply have no alternative but to use a loft space antenna. And I think it's probably better than a lot of bits of wire coiled around the loft, but time will tell. But the chief product is this sleeve antenna, which is a very good portable antenna. You can erect it in literally minutes, seconds or minutes. No radials, no counterpoises, no ground wires, nothing at all. You just feed it with your rig via the coax, and Bob's your uncle, really. And now I sell them with masts and without mast, but unfortunately there's a worldwide shortage of masts, would you believe? And I've got 6 orders currently made, ready to go out, but I can't ship because they haven't got the masts. Now, how do they come to you? They come to you in a bag like that, a little grab bag, and in the grab bag will be your unun, and you also the antenna. This is a new customer's antenna. I sewed them myself. I had a real problem today with the sewing machine, but they come out like that. There's the little spade connector. 7 meters or 6.5 meters of folded antenna. They weigh almost nothing, and they live in your bag. So if you wanted to have a grab bag or leave it in the car, which I do, you could have that. You could have your guy kit tucked in there as well, and that's all you've got. I mean, that is it, and that's an antenna. And if you've got some way of holding your mast with a bungee cord on a picnic bench or on the side of the car, that's all you need. Now, word of caution, I did have a customer who bought one to do exactly that. He wanted to run it on the side of his camper van, and that was a failure. It didn't work. It did not like being pressed close to the steelwork of a van. And he sent me an email and he said, look, it's just not working. So I gave him a refund. I'm very happy to do that. If it doesn't work, it was in as new condition. And in fact, he was quite cross in a way, because he sent me this email and he said, I want to send you it back. It's not doing what I wanted to do. And I said, not a problem, you send it straight back. He then looked at my website, and I don't know what he saw, but he believed I was reselling his antenna as a brand new antenna, or before I'd even received it back from him. And he sent me an email complaining bitterly about this. I said, no, I do actually sell more than one of these. And it was a completely different antenna. And once he understood that, changed his tune completely. And he sent me some video of his aerial in use, and it's now on my website. So, you know, I turned him from a disgruntled customer to a happy customer, albeit not a customer, because it didn't do what he wanted. People have used them permanently. GU3TUX, Chris down in the Channel Islands, he's got one. In fact, his was bespoke. He wanted it for a much larger mast, and I made one especially for him. But that's his permanent antenna now. And there's a couple of customers who've got them permanently rigged as aerials, and they're very happy with them. There aren't many people who turn out to be unhappy. The chap with the camper van, he didn't like his. But this customer here who sent this one back, this is the 3rd time I think it's now been in my workshop, and it's about to go back out to him. That's not as bad as it sounds. That's his 2nd one. He bought one, another one, which is fine. And for some reason, he can put that one on the mast. It's just this one which eludes him. So I've converted that one to a Mark II for him free of charge, and that will go back. You know, I will pay the postage on that, and he will get that back. So he will then have 2. I've been very fortunate. I've sold hundreds of them. They've gone all over the globe. The furthest is Australia. Several to Germany, some to America. So they've gone all over the place. And our business was doing really well during lockdown. I was probably selling 5 or 6 a week, which was, you know, pretty good going. And then Boris released us all and sent us all back to work. And I do not understand it, but the sales dropped off a cliff, and they went from about 1 or 2 a day to maybe 1 or 2 a fortnight. Business is coming back now. It's picking up a bit, which is good. But it was interesting to see what happens when the economic climate and the social climate in the country changes, and how that can affect sales. So I'm glad I didn't have huge overheads like Martin Lynch or someone, because that must be terrifying, frankly. So that's it. That's the sleeve antenna, and a brief introduction to the new loft tenor as well. It does what it says on the tin. I've done the EMF calculations as best I can. I mean, these aerials do not have gain, so at best they will be unity, and at worst they'll be lossy. They radiate, but I've not done any calculations to work out how much. So I just put unity in. And the distance comes out like every other aerial that seems to come out of that calculator, which is about 3.5 meters. I don't know why we have to do it. So they, yeah, that's that. So they do comply with EMF regs almost. You know, if someone is standing so close to be a category 3 person in the exclusion zone, then they're probably trying to nick it, to be honest. So, how's that, John? Is that a decent description?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. So that's good. And obviously people can just search for Bantenna and they'll find it in Google, won't they? Easy enough.
Yeah, if you go, well, it's just bantenna.co.uk.
Yeah.
What I will do, if anybody's interested, and because you mentioned it, I will put a discount code up there. It'll be obvious what it is. Well, you tell me what it is. What are we? We're ham radio. It'll be HRN then. So if you enter I haven't done it yet, and I'll try and get it done this evening. 10%, is that a decent discount?
Any percent would be useful. 10% is lovely. That's very kind of you. Yeah. Yes, I should definitely order one. So
okay. I don't think you'll be disappointed. You know, they do what they say on the tin. For a portable antenna, they do work very well. But it's the convenience of them which is just astonishing. You know, with no guy ropes and no counterpoises. Most of the time, Joe Public doesn't know what it is. It looks like a banner, which is why I called the company Bantenna. Actually, it just looked like a normal flagpole that you see at so many rallies and things. And
so, before I throw it open for other questions, I live on Romney Marsh in a town called New Romney, which is in between Hythe and Folkestone. And I'm about a mile away, if that, from, well, not even that, about half a mile away from the beach. So I'm -1 meter AGL, ASL rather, -1 meter, and it's very salty. So I have great HF takeoff from verticals. But I'm looking for, I do an awful lot of portable working. And I'm looking for an antenna that I can put in the sand, basically put the spike in the sand and tie it to that, or use one of the side groins, wooden groins to tie it to. So that's why I want one to try that. So it should be good.
Yeah. The only thing I would say about a stake in the sand is that the windage on them is quite strong. There's a great photograph on my website of someone with a Land Rover, and the mast is almost through 90 degrees. The windage is quite high. But the groin would be absolutely ideal. And that's what I've done in the past as well. But a stake in the sand, unless it's a huge stake, you might find it blowing over. But, give it a try.
Fair comment.
The beauty is, if it falls over, it won't hurt anyone, because when it falls, because of that windage, it falls very slowly. It's
no, well, great. No, it's not going to hurt anyone, I guess.
No, not at all. No.
Any questions from anyone else, folks?
Yes. How is the fixing done at the top of the mast? Is there something on the antenna itself, or do you make do and work something out yourself?
No. If you're putting the mast inside the tube, which is the Mark 1 idea, then the top of the mast is actually, it's all stitched together when it's constructed. So it's completely sealed. So the mast just comes inside it and holds itself there. It fits on like a long sleeve. If you're using the Mark II version, then that also comes with an external sleeve at the top and fits like that.
Okay. Right.
So it holds itself on. If you were hoisting it by a string, it comes with a loop. Now, there's absolutely no working out that you need to do. You do it. Now, the mast that I supply, and this is why I'm not selling them, because I can't get the mast. They're wider than a fishing pole, and they have a wire loop at the top, about the size of a 5p piece or something. So there's no danger of them poking through. I did originally use the glass fiber roach poles, but they are very sharp and they stick through the end and they tear the fabric. So if you use a roach pole, you must bind the end with some masking tape or something. But that's why I sell my own poles with them.
Okay, thank you. Kev, then Jack, please.
Yeah, Dave, could I ask you, David, have you any idea when you will have a supply of masts again, please?
Yeah, well, I had hoped for them to be in last Monday, they didn't come in. So then I was told 2 weeks from last Monday. They're on the ship and they're en route, but they're just not here yet. So I don't want to be accused of selling fraudulently. So I've taken them off out of stock with Mast. You can order one without the Mast. I mean, if you guys really want to order them and you don't mind the delay, now I've told you about them, I'm happy to put them back in stock and let you order. But I don't have the Masts, and I just haven't got them, so I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fine, Dave. I had actually, as I said earlier, I had sent you an email about several bits and pieces that I'm looking for. So when you respond to that, we'll have a chat and get an order to you.
I'll have a look at that.
I'm happy enough for you to hold the Bantenna until you get a Mast.
All right, thanks for that. Yeah,
I think a lot of people would be, to be honest. At least they've been very honest and upfront, and it's not your fault the ship's not arrived yet. Kev.
Thanks, John. Yeah, thanks, David. It's really interesting, and so I'm in an awkward situation that although I've got space, I have got trees that I can put a wire up. I've been running into problems with, I won't bore you with all the details, with the local planning authority. John's heard this story. And they're still, despite, even with the RSGB intervention, they're still being awkward. So what I thought I would do is use one of yours and have it as a temporary antenna. So I put it up and take it down, basically, but use it in my garden as my main antenna. So that was my thought. A couple of questions relating to my situation. I know you can't see my garden, but I've got trees down one side of the garden, and a couple of them are quite high. They're certainly 10 meters, I would have thought. Would that cause me problems?
I don't think it will. The problem with trees is in the winter when they get wet, as you know.
Yeah, right.
But if the mast isn't touching them, no. I've got trees in my garden, which is where I do all my testing.
Okay.
And when I was on Pepperbox Hill, I was elevated. Pepperbox is a couple of 100 feet above AGL for sure, above sea level, sorry. But that's also wooded, and that wasn't giving me any problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly use them temporarily stroke permanently, and provided, I guess, if you use bungee line or something, then it's a permanent, it's a temporary antenna, and you just
exactly
just leave it up until you don't want it anymore.
So would it, the other question I've got is, I've got one of those garden, you know, you put your umbrellas in, you know, one of those bases.
Yeah.
Would it work going in that as a base?
It will if it physically fits.
Okay.
I can, if you hang on a second, I'll tell you the diameter of the base. I'll check.
Okay. Sorry about this, guys.
We're all interested. Did you want to ask a question afterwards, Ian? Yeah, I thought you did. No worries. I'll call you in.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Yeah. Just give me a shout whenever you need me. Yep.
Okay. If you got the winning lottery numbers, it'll be now.
I wish I had. Just retired last week. I would need them.
Wouldn't be here if you won. Come on, be honest.
Quite true. Quite true.
It's a lovely photo, Aaron.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
It's all my master outside.
Don't worry too much, David. I can.
It's about 40 mil.
Okay. What I'll probably do is drop you an email anyway, because I will definitely be buying one. I've gone from almost definitely to definitely. So I'll drop you an email later on, and then maybe we can have a chat with any sort of technical stuff. And a bit like I think Jack said, I'd be happy to wait till the polls that come in, because I'd want it with one anyway. So
okay.
And
okay.
Yeah, of course. That's fantastic. Yeah, thank you.
Great
Yeah,
stuff.
I agree. I think that they're also waiting for the right pole that we know fits.
Yeah,
That
exactly. And that's the
protection on the
point.
end makes sense. If you're
Yeah.
buying the antenna, you might as well get the proper pole for
Yeah.
it.
Well,
Thanks, John. Thanks, Dave.
Pole. You know, they're a nice quality glass fiber pole with this lovely 5 pp size wire thing on the end. Is not going to damage the antenna, and it's a strong pole. So I mean, if you get bored of using my aerial, you've got a lovely pole that you can use for other aerials. You know,
Sounds good.
But the beauty of them is that they're thicker and they're wider than your standard roach. But I don't know about you guys, but I've got through so many roach poles because you break the ends off. And I've used and sold loads of these masts, and they just don't break. They're really they're a sturdy pole.
Thank you, Ian. Your turn.
Yeah, thanks very much, John. Hi, David.
Hi, Ian.
You don't know me, but you probably will know my wife better, Esther Harper, GI0AZA. She bought one of your poles, version 1. Fantastic bit of kit. We work very much doing a lot of portable work, Esther and myself. I do a lot of sodas, but Esther has a fanatical following on WWFF, the World Wild Flora and Fauna. Yeah. So she will actually, we have a wee camper van, and she will actually park up on a Flora and Fauna site, which coincidentally always seems to be a bit closer to a soda. I'll run up the soda maybe in a couple of hours, and I'll activate up there, and she'll stay in the car park, and she'll actually use your Bantenna and work on average about 60 to 80 stations on the various bands. And she's getting a lot of fun out of it. And as you exactly described, it's very easily put up. You just shake it out in the car park, put the pole up, and she lashes it to the wing mirror on the passenger side and puts a coax cable into the window. So easy put up, easy dismantle. Yeah. But one question she's asked me to ask is the only band that she has difficulty with is 80 meters. And it tunes okay in 80, but it's obviously not very efficient. And she always gets a lot of difficulty getting a few contacts on 80. So would you have any suggestions of what we could do to improve your super antenna? Maybe if you have suggestions, we can try and work at it and see if we can get it.
I thought you were going to say 30 meters, because 30 meters is the bane of any antenna experimenter's life, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think the simple issue with 80 meters is it's a short piece of wire.
Yeah,
that's the simple physics of it all. I did actually try connecting two together in a sort of V dipole situation. And my experiments got so far, and then I stopped, because the trouble is they just take so long, these experiments, as you can imagine. And every time I built two of them, customers would want to buy them. So I never had the kit to do the experimentation. But I will look into that for you, well, for Esther. I fear the answer will be on these sleeves, no. I mean, if it was a longer sleeve, if it was 10 meters long, that might fix it, but then it wouldn't be so easily portable, because a 10-meter mast is more expensive and it's bigger and heavier than the 7-meter one. But there might, I mean, my mind is running through various solutions actually, and leave it with me.
I'll leave it with you. Absolutely no panic. As I say, what it's designed for, it works absolutely wonderfully well, and it's so easily put up that, you know, she can put it up herself and take it down in a matter of seconds. You know, it's just really, really so handy. And we have tried it on fences. We've put it alongside fences beside the camper van. We've put it onto the wing mirror, and there's no difference. This actually performs just as well. 20 meters, particularly good, really, really good. 40 meters, particularly good, really, really good, no problems at all. So congratulations on designing a good bit of kit.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah.
That's good.
Thanks, John.
No, you're welcome. Anyone else for any more questions, please?
Yeah, can I come back in again?
Yeah, please do, Pete.
David, I've got this spider beam kicking around for a couple of years.
Yeah,
I
they're
promised I'd
massive.
do something. The thing is, it's a 12-meter one. Can I get a bespoke version of your Bantenna for it?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, can you
Yeah.
email me directly on that?
Yeah.
You want it 12 meters long?
It's 12 meters. Yeah.
That'll work on 80 meters. I don't know whether it work on anything else.
Will it work 70 sems?
I tell you what, though, I mean, if it's a serious question that you want that on that 12-meter mast, what you might find is that the trouble is if it goes on top of the mast, of course, then it's out of reach for your unun. But if you're happy to rig it and put it on, then the Mark II, which has got the external sleeving, would actually go over the top of that, but it would be high in the air. That will confer no advantage to it, but it means that you'll end up having to run the coax down, otherwise, because you won't reach the unun once it's in the air, as it were.
Oh, right. Okay.
They're monster beat. I mean, those masts are massive, aren't they?
Yeah, it's fairly portable if you've got a car, though. It's not that.
Yeah.
It's not that long. It's about what, meter and a bit.
Yeah, it's the diameter, isn't it? Yeah, drop me an email. We'll sort something out.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good. Any other questions, folks? Yes, Kev.
I just thought of another one.
Yeah.
So I've got a matching unit, David. Would that improve things?
Yes.
With the SWR? It will.
Yeah. The SWR as it comes out is roughly 3-to-1 or less on all bands. Some bands it's good, like you might find on 20 meters it's 1.5-to-1. And I say you might find the issue, of course, is that they're all handmade, including the ununs. So there is some.
There'll be variances.
But they'll all be 3-to-1 or less on all bands. And I always say to people, you might find some of the bands you can use without an ATU, but they're modern aerials for modern radios. And in my mind, a modern radio uses an ATU.
Yeah.
It won't improve the effectiveness, but it will improve how much of your RF is getting into it. And it will protect your finals.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, mate.
No worries.
Very good. Final call for any more questions? We'll let this poor man go back for a nice coffee or something.
Yeah, I can hear my supper being consumed. So what I'll do, guys, is it might not be tonight, but maybe tomorrow, I will put on there a discount code for HRN. That'll give you 10%. And I will reactivate the ability to order with a mast, but just with the caveat that feel free to order. I'll make your aerials for you, but I won't ship them till I've got the masts, and I will keep everyone posted as to where those masts are.
Sounds very good of you. Thank you.
Okay.
That's very
if you particularly want a Mark II, which has got the external webbing on, let me know that as well. So, if you want to use it on a different sort of mast, then let me know. Otherwise, as they come, they tend to be Mark Is, only because they look tidier. And I haven't made that final confident decision to go fully for Mark IIs yet, because it's a slight change in what I'm selling. Nothing electrically different. It just looks different, and I'm just scared of upsetting the apple cart, as it were, really.
Yes, no, I understand that. Thank you very much for tonight. It's been very kind of you to spend your time. It's been very informative, and I'm certainly looking forward to playing with mine.
Lovely. All right, and I'll probably go and log on and join HRN as well.
No, I hope so. Cheers.
Thanks a lot.